In this video, I'm going to walk you through creating a custom tab that will call all the macros that we've created in that tools.xlam in the previous videos. And one way would be to just right click, customize the ribbon, and create a new tab. But that would actually just be to that particular computer that you're on. That is not going to go with the file. So if you create this add-in and you want to share the add-in, just creating a custom tab here is not going to go with the add-in. I'm going to show you how to create it inside the add-in, and it'll always be there on as many computers as that you have this add-in installed. So to get started with this, I'm going to use the Office RibbonX editor, which I'll link this repository in the description is where you can get it to download it. And what this does is it'll put the XML file into the Excel file, which Excel file is just a big zip file. And so it'll put it in there and it'll even validate the XML for you to make sure it's correct before you can actually save it. So it's a great tool. And at the bottom, there's all the different installers that you can do. The default one is most likely what you're going to need is this Office RibbonX editor, .NET Framework installer.exe. But if you have problems with those, you could try the others and it explains up at the top what the difference is. But your most likely scenario is to use this one right here. So once you get it installed, this is what it'll look like. And so the first thing you need to do is actually open the tools.xlam or whatever your add-in is or whatever file you want to add a custom ribbon to. I'm going to go get mine from the add-ins folder. And so now it's open in here. Now I need to insert the actual custom UI. And it gives you two different options. Most likely you're going to be 2010. I hope you're still not using 2007 out there. And so what that did is inside the zip file, it put in an XML file. And this right now, this XML file is completely blank. Now it has a couple options where you can put some sample in there. And so I'm just going to say custom tab. I'm going to use its default template for that. And then it'll say it's going to put it where you have it, just so you know, wherever you have the cursor. And I'm going to say yes. And so then it put it in there. And so now I have essentially just a default tab. One thing to note is that you need to have Excel completely closed when trying to edit the ribbon, or if you're just doing it in a workbook, that particular workbook has to be closed, because when you try to go save it, if it's open in Excel, which an add-in is going to be open just because Excel is open, it'll tell you this workbook is open, you can't save this. So always make sure to have Excel closed when you're making changes to the ribbon. But now let's just say I save this. And just to show you what the default template that it put in there, if I go into Excel, you'll see now I have a custom tab with a custom button from that default template. And so the way that worked is custom UI is just the XML namespace, ribbon is just pulling the entire ribbon, tabs is the grouping of tabs within the ribbon, then a tab is the actual custom tab. So this is the actual thing that I'm going to be trying to edit to make my tools custom tab. And from here, you can kind of see how it works out. So it has tab, which is, and I called it, the label is custom tab, which is how it got its name up here. An ID just has to be a unique ID. And then it created a group, which is this custom group. And then it created a button within that group using the image of a happy face. There's a website called bettersolutions.com, which I'll link in the description, which will actually have a list of all the different controls you can use. And it'll even tell you what the different actions and callbacks that they can do. Like a button can have a bunch of different events that you can actually hook onto. And so this website is a great tool to use to figure out all the different functions that you can do with this custom ribbon. So now I'm going to take this XML and start adding my own. So like I said, the first thing I always do is close out Excel because whatever I edit will get overridden if I keep Excel open. And so first thing, let's just change this custom tab. I'm going to change its label to tools. And I'm just going to call it tab tools as the ID. And now I'm going to leave a first group, and I'm just going to go group ID is shortcuts. And then I'm just going to give it a label, which is what goes on the bottom of it. Let's say shortcuts. And now I'm going to change the button. So the first button I'm going to do is button paste values. I'm going to change that to paste values. And I'm going to give it a different. Uh, and here I'm going to use the same image that I have on my quick access toolbar, which is the equation matrix gallery. Now I'm going to make this a little bigger so I can see it all. Now the size is going to be large. There's two different sizes. There's large, which is the entire height of the ribbon, and then there's normal, which allows you to have up to 3 in the height. So you can stack 3 buttons on top. But if you have large, it's going to be just that one single button. And then the on action, this is where each a button is going to have an on action, which is going to actually run the macro, which will be a VBA call that you'll have to add later. So this is how I will do my paste values. And so I'm going to validate it just to make sure I didn't type something incorrect in the XML. And then I'm going to save it. And now I'm going to go into Excel and take a look. So now I have my Tools tab and my Paste Values button, which matches the icon there. And now it's not going to do anything right now because I set that run paste values as the callback, as the on action, the macro that it's going to run. Well, I don't have that macro in the workbook yet, so I need to add that. So I'm going, and it actually has a function that'll generate the actions that it's looking for. And so it's called generate callbacks, which will create that macro, and every on action or different event that you can put on a button or control here, you'll have callbacks for them. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go to my Excel, go to Visual Basic, and then I tend to create a whole separate module for the ribbon. And the reason for this is because these particular macros are essentially only for the ribbon because they have to pass this control as a variable through it. And because the control is the actual button itself. And so this macro is not going to be usable anywhere else but when it's talking to that particular ribbon. And so I typically call a ribbon module, and that's where I put all my callbacks, essentially all what the button is going to run. And so it's going to call macro module dot paste selection as values. And so now it's hooked up. So now I've created the event that's actually going to run when I run it. So when I click this, it's going to run this macro, which will call my macro in the macro module that'll put paste selection as values. And so now to test this, I could put a quick formula in there equals 2 plus 2, so 4. But you see that the formula is still in there. When I click that, it automatically pasted the values in there. So now it's all attached. And so now I just need to go in and add buttons for all of my macros. So now I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to save my tools XLAM file. And now I have to close it again because if I actually try to save a file, save this XML file, it would give me an error saying tools.xlam is open in another process. And so it can't even update this. So I can't update this unless the tools is closed. So now I'm going to close this and I'm going to add all my other buttons. So now I've got all of my buttons written out here and I can click save. And then I'm going to generate my callbacks, which will have all the, now it's not going to put the macros in there, but I can copy and paste. And so I'm actually going to just do that one because I've already got the run paste values. I'm going to go back and open Excel. And I'm going to go into the tools. And then I'm going to go to my ribbon module. And then add these in there. And now I'm just going to go through each one and have them call the macro module. And so now that I'm done with that, I'm going to save the tools file. Okay, so there I have it. There is all of my macros. They're all calling to different macros. And so now I can go back here and then all of my buttons should work. And so here's a workbook with a little bit more sample to use. I can still do my auto fit. I can, if I had another sheet, I can delete the active sheet. all my macros easily accessible through there. Now we can take this one step farther and add some custom icons in there instead of using the default Microsoft icons. So as always, if I'm going to make a change to the XML, close Excel all the way. And so up here, I can right click on the custom UI and I can say insert icons. And I just have a couple of icons here. I want to change the PDF icon because now I can actually use my custom icons as opposed to back on the quick access toolbar. You're kind of just limited to whatever Microsoft has given you. And so I want to use these PDF icons for my export. And so to change that, instead of image MSO, it's just plain image and then the name that's over here. So the first one, I want to call it PDF icon. And then the second one, I want to do the same thing, take out MSO, and I'm going to just say PDF icon 2 because that's what they're named over here. And then I'm going to click save. Now, when I open up Excel, I'll just pull up that workbook. Now, if I go to my Tools tab, it'll have my icons that I selected here. And now all of the other buttons that I have here, I use the image MSO, which is the image Microsoft Office, which are all the default icons that Microsoft has. And I made a matchup to the quick access toolbar I created. But if you want to scroll through and find the one that you want, there's a web page that has a thing where you can download a file. In this Word document will actually give you a listing of all of the icons that Microsoft Office has. And it'll even tell you that it's in the backstage view. So you go to File, and there's image MSO0 and image MSO1. And these are just listings of in where you can actually see every icon in the actual title that you would need to put in that XML file to get that particular icon. In addition, there's a website called bert-toolkit.com, which also lists all of the icons. They're a lot smaller here, so it's a little bit harder to tell the actual icon. But this one's actually searchable. So if you're looking for a pivot table icon, you can actually search for it and look through all the ones that have pivot table and things like that. The one in the Word document that's provided by Microsoft doesn't have that functionality. It's just a kind of a scroll and look through them. And the RibbonX has another function too, where you can actually pull groups from different tabs and stuff like that. So these are all called individual macros that I've created. Well, if you just want to have this tab that does a lot of different things, you can actually pull groups that are uh, pre-made for you. Like if you want to do the font group or something like that and add that to your tools tab, you can too. And the way to do that is to use ID MSO. And then, so I'm just going to use group sort filter. And it's pretty much that as you use the ID from the MSO, and then that will actually add it to your tools. So I'm just going to go ahead and go back in here and close Excel. And I'm going to save my custom UI Excel, open Excel again. And then the group sort filter is actually going to be the group sort and filter that you would see on the data tab. So like this entire group, I was able to add it through the ID MSO group sort filter. And finding that group name can be a little bit difficult. Now, finding the actual single command, like if you have a specific, if I just wanted to do the filter, that's actually fairly easy because you can actually come to sort and filter. And if you hover over it, it'll actually tell you that that is data tab, sort filter, sort, and then in parentheses, sort dialog. Well, what you have in parentheses was what you would actually put in the image or ID MSO field on the XML file. But and as far as the group goes, sometimes what you need to do is just create a custom tab, put it over there, and then export it and see what the actual export looks like. But otherwise, you can actually pull all the different tools that you want. So you can add Excel-based tools there, some that if you don't want to have the developer tab open, or you can actually just add the Visual Basic here, and so you don't have to have the developer tab and all the other functions that it comes with. But for my tools, I don't really need that, so I'm going to go back in here and remove that. And as always, I'm going to close Excel before I can save it. Save. And now I go back And I have my tools with my custom ribbon. I hope you like this video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.